Okay, guys, today I'm going to show you how to use the Giffin grip as well as how to trim the bottom of your leather hard wheel thrown pieces. So right now I threw a mug. I'm getting ready to trim it. You want to make sure it is at a good leather hard status, so it shouldn't be wet and sticky. When I touch it, it shouldn't really easily move. You can trim things when they're bone dry, but you're more prone to messing it up. So it's best that leather hard stage is very forgiving. So it should be cold to the touch, still should be kind of dark in color. But I should be able to handle it without leaving a whole bunch of fingerprints all over it. So we can use the heat guns to speed up the drying process as needed, but true leather hard stage after it's sat under a bucket for a few days is ideal. All right, so before I actually start trimming this thing, set this over here, I need to get the Giffin grip, which is this big device. It's got two kind of discs that are interlocked. There are some grips. I'll try to position that. Some grips on the bottom, and it should have the little washers and little rubber band right there as well. So this should go straight down on top of the wheel head. And then you just want to make sure that it's level. So, you can kind of watch it kind of like right here, and it's not like kind of going up and down. If you look at it and it kind of goes like this, then it's not level. Okay, so make sure you push down all the way. And then we have to slide some brackets into the piece. So there should be 3 of them. They should all be the same. I'm probably going to have to use the posts. Otherwise, you can just have the rubber grips grab your piece. So it just depends on how tall it is. So I'm going to slide these in. It does have to be in the exact position to slide those in. Then over here, depending on how tall your piece is it short, is it tall, you will select your post. You want your posts to grip your project about halfway up. So sometimes what I'll do is I'll put my project on there and I'll make sure the wheel is off so it doesn't go flying. And I'll put my posts in there and I'll see where it'll kind of hit. Then to tighten it, and I've even got instructions right here on the wheel head. To tighten it, I spin it this way. To loosen it, I spin it this way. So I want to tighten it. So you have to hold underneath, and you should see them all start to kind of move in together. And this is going to, all this doesn't actually trim the piece. This just holds it so it doesn't go flying across the room. All right, so that's why I make sure the wheel's off. So in case I accidentally hit the pedal, it doesn't go flying. All right, so the ultimate goal of trimming the bottom, so I'm going to scooch this guy in a little bit. The ultimate goal of trimming the bottom of our pieces is just to get a very nice finished bottom edge. So, got my example. For instance, on this guy, I'm not sure I get this in the frame, you can see I did a really nice fancy glaze on there too. I have this little stepped lip, and then I have this raised foot. The raised foot is the most important thing. That's what keeps our piece sitting level. And then you just get a nice kind of decorative edge on the bottom as well. So that's what we're going for. It also helps you just kind of take out weight if you do kind of have some heavier bottom pots. All right, so now that I've got my piece secure, now I can turn my wheel back on. As for speed, you don't want it doesn't have to go warp speed, but you just don't want to go slow. So I have words on here. As long as you can't read the words, it's going fast enough. You're going fast enough. Yes, you can go faster. Sometimes that's more satisfying. Trimming is one of those things that I enjoy. It's that finished touch on the pot. Really helps you complete the work. So tools that I'm going to have handy. I have my big loop tool for my kit. I have my medium loop tool, my double-ended, and I have my rib, my metal rib. These are going to be helpful. Also back there in the drawer, some really odd shaped loop tools. I also have this kind of guy and this guy, kind of half loop tools you can use. And then I have an assortment of wooden tools as well, just depending on what I want to do to the foot of my piece. So I'm going to start with my big loop tool. And I'm going to start just by leveling out the bottom. So this is, you have to do this with the wheel spinning counterclockwise. Because if you have it spin the other way, the Giffin grip itself will loosen, and that'll be bad, and that'll make your piece fly. But you might have some pieces stuck here left over from when you removed it from the bat. So you can either take the metal ribs, I'll show that, or the big loop tool. And I just want to shave some of these little pieces off on the bottom. So the trick is to stay between center and 3 o'clock. all right, so that I can catch the blade of the loop tool. So I'm going to start angling the tool, so the angle does matter. And the clay should be kind of coming off in little ribbons. If you're not getting ribbons, if you're getting dust, that means your clay is really dry. Or if it's coming off in chunks, your clay's too wet. So once again, it's that primo leather hard stage. So that's with the loop tool. If you want to try it with the rib, I have 2 hands, okay, 2 hands on the rib. And once again, I hold it between center and 3 o'clock. And I use this to just flatten the bottom out. I don't get the ribbons when I do this, but you can see I'm getting clay on my middle rib. All right, so just trying to get rid of any unevenness there. Okay, so then my next move is to take care of this outer edge. And I already kind of did a little bit of a decoration, figuring out where my foot is. Some of you might have this big kind of flange coming off the piece. So depending on how you throw it, depends on how much you'll have to trim off. I'm just going to start using my flat loop tool here. And this is when we really start to see lots of the ribbons. And they're going to fly off the wheel. It's totally fine. Someone dropped something next door. And you can see I'm just moving very slowly. Hopefully you're noticing my hand position too. I'm holding the tool in my right hand so that I can work over here on the side. I have my other thumb resting on my hand, and then this hand's just kind of dragging on the clay just so I can feel the shape. So both hands are kind of working together. You can also kind of go like this, and that's fine too. But I'm just taking some of the weight out of the side. Depending on the shape I want to create, I might change the angle of my loop tool. But you'll start to get those little spirals coming off the piece. So what I want is a little bit of an undercut here. Now I did already have kind of an accented foot if I want to make it even more dramatic. So the reason we cut pieces under like this, it creates a shadow on the figure, kind of between the mug and the table, right? We call it the figure ground. But also, if we're going to do something crazy drippy with our glaze, it gives it a stop point. So if we accidentally put a little too much drip on there, there's some raw clay to catch the glaze before it goes off the piece. So a lot of times I'll do an accented foot, and then I'll leave that one part unglazed. So in case I get a really drippy glaze on there, it knows where to stop. So the other thing with a foot is really thinking about the shape that you want. Like I said, whether you want that accented. So a lot of times I might stop the piece, might flip it over, might take a good look at it and be like, is that the shape that I want? Does the foot kind of match the rim? Does it feel really heavy? Does it feel really light? Another thing I'm going to do is I'm going to feel down inside of there and feel how thick it is down in there, because I don't want to run the risk of making this too small and then I shave through. Okay, and then I got to start all the way over from square one. I got to sit back down at the wheel, throw another mug. All right. All right, my next move is to get that dip in the bottom. And if you look at the bottom of any container ever created by anyone, all right, there's a dip there, okay? It helps it sit flat on the table, but it also has to do with heat retention and how long you want your coffee to stay hot. So what I'm first going to do is kind of measure how far I should go. So there's a little trick here you can do with your wooden knife, all right? So I'm going to you can take 2 knives. You can take your loop tool and your knife. It doesn't matter to me. But I'm going to lay this over the top. And then I'm going to put this down, whatever's the deepest. For me, it's the very middle. So hopefully you see I'm making like this little cross. And then I come over here and then I just move it to the outside. I'll try to hold this still so it doesn't move on me. And that tells me way down here how much clay I have at the very bottom. So I know how much clay I can shave off, because the worst thing is when you throw these things and then you carve a hole right through the bottom and then it just becomes a flower pot. Okay. So we always make something out of everything, right? So I'm looking at this. I can see I've got basically the thickness of this handle here. So I can look at this and be like, okay, I know that's how thick it needs to be. Oh, holding it too high. I can see how that's how thick I can go. I don't want to go any thicker. All right. I want to make kind of a guaranteed mark there. So I'm going to put this right back in the Giffin. And since I've turned it, it might not be quite exactly even, so I might have to do some fixing there. So notice how I kind of wiggle it a little too. just to make sure it truly is back in the middle. So yeah, there we go. That's not too far off. All right, so now I have to go do the dip. All right, so my first step is to figure out how big I want this raised part. So you can see on this guy, I have a little skinny foot. On plates, I might leave a bigger foot. It just depends on how wide the surface is. On real big platters, I might actually leave several rings just so the plate stays nice and stable. All right, so I'm going to start first by getting this part nice and level. Then I'm just going to take the corner of my loop tool and I'm just drawing a line. So that's just a little dipped carved line. I'm not done, all right? Then what I have to do is shave away all this stuff in the middle. So I'm going to take my rounded end. And you have to kind of let the tool do its job. So you have to kind of catch the blade of the tool. So you can see I'm just kind of repeating myself, shaving off a layer, shaving off a layer. You can use the squared part of your loop tool, but it is going to leave some lines. So you have to kind of be strategic with how you do that. So, and I'm just letting them fly everywhere. I'll get a broom and a dustpan later. Make sure this part's really flat. Make sure this is even. So this is definitely one of those instances where you have to stay nice and still as you carve and not let the clay move you. Let the tool do its job. There we go. That evened it out a little bit. I'll do one more pass. But I don't want to run the risk of going too deep here. So the hardest part, I think, to get is that little center section. Just making sure it's not too raised up. So then sometimes you can use a wooden tool, or you can just kind of, if it's perfectly leather hard, honestly, you can just kind of press with your finger. And I like to press with my finger because then if I know it's getting a little thin, I can feel it move. And I can be like, oh, leave that section alone before I carve right through it. Okay. So I drag my hands a lot so I can feel where I want that clay to be. Okay. Okay. So you can see there, I've got some crummies. All I got to do is grab a paintbrush. I don't know if I have one readily available. Here's one. Just grab a little dry paintbrush there. Sweep away all your crummies, little tiny broom. All right. And that'll get rid of all of those. And then I flip it over. I double check, make sure my thickness is where I want it to be. I know it was about halfway through here was the bottom of this. So I wanted to kind of go a quarter down in. So it doesn't matter how deep this is. You just don't want to completely flush. If you're not sure if it's flush, you can always take the flat side of your knife and kind of put it there. And that'll help guarantee it's nice and flush. Some people even take their bat and put it on top and make sure the bat's not wobbly. Then once I'm satisfied with my foot, I do usually take the time, once again, either with my hands, you can take a rubber rib. Some people like to take the wooden tools to smooth sections out. So if you do want to kind of burnish or do anything like that, now is a great stage. You can make the pieces so smooth during the leather hard stage. So it's up to you. Some people like the spirals. So you just have to kind of move faster than the wheel. So if you want a little bit of a decoration on the bottom, you can do that. You know, you can decide what looks good on the bottom, but you just want it clean. Just make sure that this is raised. Then, of course, the most important thing to do at the bottom of any project is to put your name. And I left my loop tool somewhere. That was the one thing I meant to grab before I sat down. There it is. All right. And then the last thing, of course, you will have your chops, right? So whatever your logo is that you'll put in the bottom of your pieces. I like to put my signature in there. It is my mug. I made it. You don't have to put the date. I enjoy putting the date on there, so at least know when I make it. Kind of reflect back on that. Then make sure your wheel's off. Loosen the grip by holding the bottom. So loosen, tighten. Here's the bottom of our mugs. So I've got my signature on there. Got the year 2020. Nice, beautiful mug. It's ready for its handle, which I already did through the sprig mold. So I just got to clean that guy up, get it on there. So we'll play around with kind of how that angle works for my mug and where I want it to go and where I want it to touch. But that's how you use the Giffin grip. So there you go.